I'm also a criminal defense attorney here in town. I'm married, father of 2 boys, member of Lower Creek Baptist Church. I've been a member there since '95, although I'm currently attending Fairview Presbyterian because my wife plays piano there. I'm not going to address the religious or moral aspects of this amendment. There are good principle and policy-based reasons to vote no against this, regardless of your position on the religion or the morality of gay marriage. If you believe in smaller, less intrusive government, you should oppose this amendment. If you believe the Constitution is supposed to protect your rights against the government, you should oppose this amendment. And if you believe that, and if you believe in unintended consequences of laws and how an amendment or a law that's passed can have far-reaching consequences beyond what anyone expected in the first place, you should oppose this amendment. First of all, regarding the point of smaller government, again, as a proponent of less government across the board, I will always vote for and will always support smaller, less intrusive government. For those of you who know, as a councilman, I've always opposed tax increases. I've always imposed increasing spending. I've always opposed federal and state grant programs. I've supported the right to bear arms. For me, whenever you talk about smaller government, you're talking about more freedom. And when you get right down to it, government has no role in defining marriage in the first place. It's a contract between 2 individuals and their church and their God if they so choose. Government has no role in telling people how their relationships are supposed to be defined. In fact, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington didn't go to the government and say, we need a marriage certificate, we need you to bless our marriage. They just got married. That's the way it was then, that's the way it should be now. The government shouldn't have any role in this issue. On the second point, constitutions are supposed to protect our rights against the government. They're not supposed to restrict our options or restrict our choices. Nicole mentioned the Bill of Rights, one of the greatest documents ever written by man, which protected us against the government for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, the right to bear arms, against search and seizure, guaranteed our right to a jury trial so a jury decides our fate and not a judge, and against cruel and unusual punishment. This idea that marriage has been defined for 5,000 years, Nicole mentioned the 2 general statutes on marriage. The second one, 51-1.2, was only passed in 1996 as a response by the Democratic elected legislature. At that point, as we all know, the legislature was majority Democrat. They passed the 51-1.2 that said it's only between marriages between individuals of the same gender are not valid in North Carolina. It's clear, it's simple. This proposed amendment is not clear and it's not simple. And that's where I get into my third point of unintended consequences. The language on the ballot is for or against constitutional amendment to provide that marriage between 1 man and 1 woman is the only domestic legal union that shall be valid or recognized in this state. Now you think that's pretty clear, and it's addressed by my opponents when they talk about the state of Ohio. The state of Ohio passed an amendment that was very similar that said only a union between 1 man and 1 woman may be a marriage valid in or recognized by this state and its political subdivisions. 4 different opinions from the appellate courts of Ohio declared that the laws that had been passed against domestic violence did not operate in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. So, thank you. So where a boyfriend beat up on a girlfriend and put her in the hospital, the case was thrown out on a conviction of domestic violence because they weren't in a relationship recognized by the state. The Board of the Board of Elections' own flyer on this issue from the North Carolina Constitutional Amendment Commission, including Secretary of State Marshall and Attorney General Cooper, expressed concerns. The term domestic union is not defined. There is debate among legal experts about how this proposed amendment may impact North Carolina law as it relates to unmarried couples, particularly in regard to domestic violence laws, child custody and visitation, employment-related benefits for domestic partners. We may end up telling companies how they're supposed to run their business and what benefits they can give their employees. I thought that was antithetical to the Republican position, telling businesses how they're supposed to run, but that's what this constitutional amendment may do. It may affect custody and visitation rights between 2 people who aren't married but have a child in common. Thank you.